Someone You Should Know. A program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sax, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sax.
Well, thank you again for being with us for another edition of Someone You Should Know. It's always great to hear from you. And this week I got lots of comments about some of the previous shows that we have run, and nothing makes me feel better than to know that people are watching and you care and you're sharing the shows with other people, because we try to bring information to you that's timely and interesting and informative. And thank you very much. And we are brought to you in part by No Sweat Experts. You know, it's hot outside. The very last thing you need is for your air conditioning to fail on you right now at this time of the year. So you get in touch with Roy Cook and his gang over there at No Sweat Experts. They will take good care of you. They take good care of me. They come out 4 times a year. Devin is my go-to guy. They're really great local company to do business with. So anywhere in the DFW area, call No Sweat Experts. You know, there's an awful lot being said right now about recession, about the stock market, about conserving the money that you have, about the high cost of gas at the pumps. It's all related to dollar bills and money. So I brought in my guest, Jen Colby, who is going to spend some time today talking about not only the money you have, but the money that you want to keep. I think that's the pretty important part, isn't it? Jen, thank you for spending time with me today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You know, you are a rare kind of person in today's financial climate, and that is somebody who knows the ins and outs of what's happening with money and the markets. And I, for one, will be the first to say that if you're a day trader and you know how to do it and you want to buy and sell and try and make money, fine. But the vast majority of us don't. If we have been able to sock away a few bucks over the years, the last thing we want to do is to look and see that it's depleting. We're losing it. So I guess the first thing that I want you to tell our audience today is, why is it important for people to consider having a financial, planner in their back pocket?
Well, I think a financial planner is like a good hairdresser, as I always say to the women that I work with. I can cut my own hair, but it's not going to look as good once I'm finished. So I need experts. Yeah, I need experts just like you do. Men in the room too. I mean, military guys come back with a haircut, and if their wife did it, it's a hack, right? So a financial advisor, a CPA, somebody of that sort is going to be your expert in the room. And they're not only just doing investments, but they're also seeing the other things surrounding the investment approach. So a good financial advisor is not the investments are the means to the end, not the end goal. Because we're going to take into account your goals, your future, things that you wouldn't have considered, like long-term care issues, perhaps education concerns with your kids. Insurance may be part of that as well as long-term legacy planning with a trust and estates attorney. And there's tax management. So there's a whole host of people around that you need to surround yourself with. However, most people aren't going to see that. They're going to have some blind spots.
That's very important. For instance, when you go looking for a car, a good salesman doesn't just walk you over and show you the lot and say, pick out what you like, because you're probably going to go for that red sports car. But if he's smart, he says to you, is this for the family or is this just for you? Are you going back and forth to work every day, or are you going across country? How much are you going to use the vehicle? And if you got a family of 6, you're probably going to need a little bit bigger vehicle to get all of them in. I mean, Am I correct that this is basically the same thing that you want to devise from your clients?
That's a great point. And actually, when you're saying that, I was on a car lot recently, and a gentleman just showed me the car without asking any questions. And I actually turned to my fiance and I said, he's not a sales guy. He didn't ask me any questions. He's just making some assumptions based on what I walked into onto the lot with. But I would prefer he ask me a few questions because there's some factors that need to be taken into consideration. So that's exactly what I do is as an advisor, it's important to ask a bunch of questions, things that somebody may not have even realized that they needed to know or consider. So when somebody says, hey, I need a financial advisor, what can you help me with? I have about 10 questions at the top of my tongue as to how we can address that. I have more questions than answers from the very get-go.
All right. So what are some of those questions that I call you up and I say, okay, look, I think I need somebody to help me manage my money or my portfolio or whatever. What are the things that you want to know?
Just based on those two questions alone is, okay, tell me about your existing portfolio. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? What are your main concerns? What's going on existing in your portfolio or outside in the market that makes you want to even talk to somebody? Tell me about the experience you've had with your previous advisor. Really, what are your goals? What would you like to achieve? And then we start digging into budget and other numbers. But really, it's the intangible things first and foremost, and then we start digging into the tangible dollar signs.
So obviously, over the last 6 months to maybe almost a year, people have seen a decline in the markets. Should people be afraid? Should they be cautious? Should they be taking some of the money out and putting it under the mattress? For that rainy day if things should go south on us even further.
That's a multi-layered onion right there. So it depends on, and Bernstein will always say it depends, right? But so let's break that into
Definite maybe
components. Yeah. So it really depends on what somebody's life cycle is. Where are they with their finances? If they're closer to retirement, it may make sense to pull some of those resources out for flexibility because we just don't know. But that is a careful conversation and consideration with an advisor to make sure that that's done in a calculated manner. Because if somebody does pull all of their assets out at the bottom of the market, and we don't know when that is, or if when it will occur, or if we've already hit it, you're locking those losses into place when in a critical time in your life. For somebody that's on the front end of their savings and their retirement planning, their goal planning, they can take on some more risks. So if they actually have cash on the side, that's a fantastic. We're supposed to and continue to ride that wave as we go back into the market. To address the question with sitting on cash, cash is a wonderful thing, but it can be hampered in an inflation rich environment. So these rates are going to eat up your buying power in cash. So having some on the side to dampen the blow day-to-day operations and bills, it's critical. And that's a conversation, once again, with an advisor on what is my Linus blanket, as I like to call it. What's my number that needs to be in the bank to be comfortable, to absorb emergencies. But if we're pulling out of the market because we're afraid, that's a completely opposite behavior of what needs to be done. Because once again, if the market's down, you're locking those losses into place and more than likely paying taxes on those on some things that would have happened on the gains. And so it's a double whammy.
Yeah, when the market is up, everybody feels great. You don't often think about, well, where was I when I started? If I was at this level and I've seen it go like this, I feel terrific. Well, but when it goes down like this, you have to say to yourself, look, I started here. And the one thing that I think you can admit to, that the market is always going to rise and fall.
Yes.
Sometimes higher, sometimes lower, sometimes faster, sometimes slower. But For the sake of the audience,
Mhm.
let's say I'm a 20-year-old. I'm newly married. I've got one child that's starting grade school and another one that's in diapers. Uh, I got I'll throw a number out. I got $10,000 that I want to start putting away into something that helps to grow. What kind of a balance would you take for a young couple with two children in that scenario?
Well, once again, I always have more questions than I have answers, but I'm assuming that these individuals, if they're working, are doing the best they can to max out their 401k, at least contributing up to the match because that's free money. If they have flexibility on the side, they probably need to have an emergency fund. Once again, a number that would get them through an air conditioning replace and call your sponsors today, right? That's a fun bill to
Right.
accommodate. Maybe some tires getting blown out or replacement on a car down payment. So after that's taken into consideration, and if that $10,000 is really to have that flexible, after that, it's really flexible money. Then my recommendation is to start at the baseline with a balanced approach. So that means that they're going to have probably about 80% equity and 20% fixed income to have some balance so that it does insulate their portfolio from a drop because we are experiencing that. And you don't fall as far like you were mentioning. But to start with a balanced approach first and foremost gives you a really strong base to work with. And an advisor can walk you through on how to attack that, whether it's individual stocks, individual bonds, or mutual funds, or even ETFs.
All right, so now let's fast forward about 15 years.
Okay.
That older child is getting ready to go to college, and the younger child is in getting ready to go into high school.
Mm-hmm.
And all mom and dad are still working, and of course, once one goes off to college, there's a little bit of a half empty nest. And all now, how do you go back to this client and say, I think it's about time we make a few adjustments in order to cover that college-bound child?
Well, hopefully that college-bound child has been planned for all along, because trying to recover and pay for college on a dime and really pivot very quickly is difficult because the cost of college is way more than most clients realize. And there's fringe costs to going to college. There's the football games that kids want to go to. There's the movies. There's trips to Costa Rica or what have you, right? That nobody considers. So when somebody is nearing, I would assume they're closer to retirement, right? So we're starting to pull back. And it really depends on their income situation, their spending situation, what college that child is going to. But if we're looking at their whole portfolio in place, there's a whole host of factors that are at play. So once again, it really depends. And to try and gear my answer toward exactly what they should do, it's really going to depend on their focus because some individuals may be able to withstand a higher and more intense portfolio, still with a lot of stocks involved. But if somebody is perhaps that one of them lost a job or there's a health issue, we're going to have to pull back because we need to insulate our portfolio against the volatility like we are experiencing. So it really depends. And the final thing I'll say to that, if we have some flexibility financially, if we don't have life insurance or long-term care insurance to protect that portfolio at end of life, that's a strong consideration that needs to be discussed now because it only gets more expensive every day that you're living.
We've talked about insurance, and some people will say, "Well, I'm young, I'm healthy, and all. I don't need life insurance, and all." But you just don't know about the unexpected. And when the breadwinner suddenly is in an accident or whatever and taken out of the picture, it can throw the entire financial picture completely upside down.
Yes.
So planning is extremely important. And I think it's also safe to assume that when you get your paycheck, whether you get a paycheck every 2 weeks or weekly or monthly, am I correct that you should always have a plan that part of that paycheck goes into your savings, into your investments? in other words, pay yourself first. Yeah, you got to have enough money for the food, the rent, the mortgage payment, whatever, the car payment and all. But also one of those items on the list should be you.
Yes, I would agree with that statement wholeheartedly. I think if the majority of Americans did that, for real, that would be amazing. I think we would be in a much better situation, person to person. And if I could teach every high school student to do that as well with that paycheck from, Chick-fil-A or wherever they work, that would be amazing. I think the actual behavior in homes with that paycheck does not occur. But when we're saving, that gives us the financial flexibility to weather something like this with the volatility.
Yeah.
Because the air conditioner, I keep bringing that up, and it just happens to be the sponsor today. But I've personally experienced it. I've seen my clients experience that, and it's an incredible detriment to their portfolio sometimes because they do not have the cash on hand. They did not pay themselves forward, and now they're paying credit card bill, or they took it out of their portfolio when the market's ramped up.
Yeah, and we're not talking hundreds and thousands of dollars every week. Even if somebody as little as let's say even $15 a week out of that paycheck goes right into that investment account. You don't want to say to yourself, "Oh well, listen, I need a little extra money just for social to go to a movie or something like that. I'll just take it from the money that I normally put into the investment account." You're probably better off giving up that pizza and taking the cost of that pizza and putting it into the investment account, because it may not seem like an awful lot to you today, but boy, at the end of the year, when you see all of that money that went into the investment account and now the interest is accruing on top of the interest, you're going to be pleased with the plan that you've done. My mom and dad instilled that in me and my sister. And those were the days where we didn't have 401ks.
Yeah.
You went down to the bank and you put the money into a savings account. And
held
of
on
course,
to cash.
in those days, maybe your savings account was getting 8, 9, 10, 12% interest. Now, forget about it. That money's got to go into something that's going to make money for you at a better rate than sitting in a bank.
Agreed. And so you touched on something that's interesting that I get a lot is, okay, so if I'm paying myself forward and the market's down right now, how is that beneficial for me to sideline that $15, $100? Well, let's talk about it in the 401k, because if people are contributing to their 401k, the same thing is happening, and it's easier for people to conceptualize. So it's something called dollar cost averaging, and it's a very simple concept, and it actually will, for lack of a better term, pay dividends. So let's talk about the $100 going into your 401k. It is coming out, say, the 15th of every month when you get paid. You never see it if you set it up properly, right? You don't miss it. Like you said, you're not missing out on the extra pizza or the extra Starbucks, what have you, but it's going into your portfolio nonetheless. Well, on a day when the market is down, you are getting a steal. It's on clearance. It's because you're still buying